We live in the realm of reality, but truth is always elusive. It leads us deeper into the tunnels of evidence and beyond the reaches of fantasy. The only explanation will be found descending the staircase. Coming down.
Hello everyone and welcome back to The Staircase. This is your half host, Nicholas Bowling.
And I'm your other half host, Nathan.
So we got another awesome conspiracy video for you guys. I know it's been a little while, but we are back and we got a great one for you. So this is Nathan's story, so we're going to get right on into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Well, this is another conspiracy for us, and it's one that's taken place outside of America again. So this one's going to be in Germany, and this is the unsolved Hinterkaifeck murders. And have you heard of this one?
No, I have never heard of this. I know you've been, you've had this in the chamber for a little while, so it's nice for us to get back in the swing of things on this. So I'm excited to hear this, though, man. From the name of it, it sounds like some crazy stuff. So
yeah, I can't wait to tell you. So without further ado, let's just get on into it. In 1922, on the evening of March 31st, on the Hinterkaifeck farm in Bavaria, Germany, 4 residents were found dead in a shed on the family's land. Inside the family's home, 2 more bodies were found, a small 2-year-old toddler and the new maid. The 6 victims were husband and wife Andrea and Kazelia Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 children, Kazelia and 2-year-old Joseph. Maria Baumgartner and young Joseph were the only 2 victims to be found inside the home. As for the remaining 4, they had all been found dead in the farm shed that belonged to the Gruber family. After the murders took place, the murderer continued to live on the property for 6 days.
wow. So already we're just jumping right into it. So 6 bodies total. So obviously 2 of the parents and the rest children.
Yeah, now Victoria is their daughter, and then she had 2 kids that lived there as well. So she's a little bit older, and her 2 kids were also found dead. So this is like super reminiscent to me of the Setagaya massacre, the unsolved Japanese story that we had already covered, where the killer, he killed his victims and then he stayed inside of the apartment for the remainder of his time, ate, went to the bathroom, did the whole deal. So super reminiscent of that. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, didn't he leave like a dump in the toilet or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I think he took some of the belongings of the owner, put them in the toilet, and then took a dump on top.
Okay,
right on top. Yeah.
I remember that. Okay.
With his keys, I think his keys were in there, which is super weird.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember that. The first thing that comes to mind on that one is the father walking in on his kid being strangled. That's terrible. But check that out. Link down below if you guys haven't checked that out.
Okay, so witnesses claim to see smoke rising from the chimney days after the murder. Not only that, but the farm animals had continued to be fed, meals had been cooked in the home, and the family dog was seen tied up to a post when the mailman came on Saturday. The bodies were all discovered the next day on Sunday. The perpetrator, or perpetrators, used a mattock belonging to the family farm and killed the family with blows to the head.
So this guy a person, I guess we don't know who it is yet, but he literally kept feeding the animals, and this is like a farm, not just some dogs you have. That's crazy.
Right, exactly. That's like the weird part, is that he continued to do probably pretty laborious chores during his stay there. Yeah, super strange.
Yeah, that's very odd.
These killings are considered one of the most gruesome and puzzling unsolved crimes in German history. And to this day, the killer has never been caught.
Wow. And when was this? When did this happen?
This is in 1922.
Wow, so this guy's probably dead by now. Has to be dead by now.
Yeah, I would say definitely has to be. If not, he's definitely slowed down a little bit.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Now, let's get into some of the details of the case. The most notable detail to mention has to be the presence of the maid, or rather, the new maid, Maria Baumgartner. She had just started her first day on the job after replacing the family's previous maid who quit 6 months earlier for reasons you won't believe.
Jesus.
After hearing voices and footsteps coming from the attic, the former maid believed the house to be haunted. The family dismissed the maid as a superstitious lunatic and began their hunt for a new one. But when Mr. Gruber began to notice unusual activity on the farm, his skepticism began to shake.
Maybe this lady's not so crazy.
Exactly. So first, he had found a newspaper on the property belonging to another city in Germany, and none of the family members had claimed to have purchased it.
I mean, that's not like super crazy.
That would be like us, finding, and it says Germany too, so it's another part of the country. That would be like us finding a newspaper from, like Washington.
Yeah, back then that was probably a lot more strange.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also noticed a pair of keys missing from the home. The set of keys that would unlock a certain tool shed containing a certain mattock.
Well, what is a mattock?
Well,
Hey Siri, what's a mattock?
so it's kind of like an axe or like a chisel almost, like what you would see like people like chiseling with like maybe like a rock or something.
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, so not really a sledgehammer, but
Yeah, not an axe, not a sledgehammer, just kind of like something in between.
gotcha.
Next, Mr. Gruber found a set of snow tracks leading from the forest to a broken door lock in the farm's machine room. And he began to wonder if, after all, like you said, maybe the maid had been onto something. The family would be murdered shortly after these discoveries.
Wow. Should have listened to the maid, bro.
Yeah, so, and super unfortunate too that on her first day, she's killed.
Really.
The discovery of the murdered family came by way of the neighbors attempting to get a hold of Mr. Gruber until finally checking the shed and then ultimately the home. Initially, the police believed it to be a robbery gone bad, but when a large sum of cash was found still inside the home, they quickly dismissed the idea.
It reminds me of the Dardenne family massacre where the whole family was slaughtered. They basically thought it was a robbery, but there was like money and jewelry and a camcorder laid out, and then I ruled out the robbery.
Yeah, it's like you would think, why wouldn't you take the money? I mean, you did everything else. It's sitting right there.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you take it?
Totally.
Cash too.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you weren't looking for robbery, if there's cash there, I mean, you gotta just grab it.
Yeah, you would think. That kind of shows the mindset of this person. Trying to gain evidence for the case proved to be challenging, mainly due to the high influx of neighbors who insisted on not only being there in the home, but who also made meals in the home while the investigation was active. So they're there like cooking food. The neighbors are there cooking food while the police are investigating the house. They're like, hold on, we need, I don't know what they eat in Germany, but
What in
they're eating that.
Wow, that's strange.
So definitely contaminating any kind of crime, because the dude was already cooking. So now they come behind him and start cooking all the DNA that maybe, well, they didn't have DNA in 1992, but.
Yeah, totally.
Well, they had DNA, but they didn't have weight testing. So after the autopsy was conducted, some of the more crucial evidence began to surface. The weapon was a mattock, although not found at the crime scene. And the younger Kazelia, Victoria's daughter, was alive for several hours after the killings. So she actually had survived the longest.
Oh wow, that's almost worse, man. Like having to witness all that and then dying, feel yourself dying.
And it gets a little worse. So ripping out her hair in tufts as she waited for death. She was like tearing her hair out as she was dying. Oh my God. Super crazy. The skulls of the victims were all removed and flown to Munich for further investigation.
Oh shit! I thought the freaking murderer did that for a second. I was like, what the fuck?
No, but it's still crazy to think that they removed the skulls.
Yeah, especially back then. I mean, that's like some.
Yeah,
it seems like that's not something they, did a lot back then.
Additionally, the 4 family members found in the shed were led there one by one and were murdered in the shed, getting stacked one atop the other after each blow to the head.
Good night.
In the inspection report of the court commission, it was noted that the victims were probably drawn to the barn by restlessness in the stable, resulting in noises from the animals. So in other words, it it's possible that maybe there was someone, causing a disturbance in the shed to rile up the animals, getting them to keep coming one by one into the shed. Because there was no disturbance of, the ground or any struggle on them. They didn't have any defensive wounds.
Right.
So that, that was another big, and I'm assuming also the amount of blood that would have been in that central area, from the initial hit.
Yeah.
And stacking, would have shown where they died.
Man, stacking them up, that's just like.
And imagine the girl at the end surviving that and being stacked on top of your dead family.
Yeah, man.
Super intense.
Just bleeding out, waiting to die.
So let's get into some of the suspects. The first two suspects are people that the Gruber family would have known. The first is Kezelia's, quote, dead, unquote, husband, Carl Gabriel. So this might get a little confusing, so let me just try to help break it down a little bit. Remember, there was a parents who died, and then you have Victoria, who is the daughter. She had kids who were also killed, okay? So the daughter had a husband who was believed to have been killed in the war. However, his body was never discovered. But why he would have returned and killed the family, well, the theory goes that Andrea Gruber, Kezelia's father, had been having sex with her.
Oh, jeez.
So the dad who was killed may have been having sex with his daughter, Victoria.
Yeah.
And the young infant Joseph may have actually been the biological son of her father. She had Joseph while Carl was away in the war. So could her husband have come home and decided to kill the family out of revenge, for, the dad, maybe sleeping with the daughter? That theory kind of doesn't really hold much weight to me, but that is one of the main theories that's out there. What do you think?
Wow, dude, that's sickening. Incest. What in the world? Like, incest is just that my brain can't even I can't even wrap my brain around that. Like, it's just next level, like, just disgusting.
Also, huge just accusation to throw at the dad too, which may not even be like a real thing.
Yeah, totally.
So, next up, we have Lorenz Schlittenbauer. So shortly after the death of his first wife in 1918, Lorenz Schlittenbauer was believed to have had a relationship with Victoria Gabriel. So it's possible that Lorenz Schlittenbauer had a relationship with Victoria, and maybe he was the father of young Joseph. Schlittenbauer came under suspicion by locals early in the investigation because of his several suspicious actions immediately after the discovery of the bodies. So he was one of the neighbors.
Okay.
So when Schlittenbauer and his friends arrived to investigate the scene, so when the neighbors showed up first, they had to break a gate to enter the barn because all the doors were locked. However, immediately after finding the 4 bodies in the barn, Schlittenbauer apparently unlocked the front door with a key and, suspiciously, entered the house alone. And remember, there were those keys to the house that had gone missing several days before the murders. Remember that?
Yep.
Though it is also possible that Schlittenbauer, as a neighbor or as Victoria's potential lover, might have been given a key. So when asked by his companions why he had gone into the house alone when it was unclear if the murderer might still be there, because they didn't know if he was gone or not, Schlittenbauer allegedly stated that he went to look for his son, Joseph. So right away, he's already claiming that Joseph was his son.
Wow.
Now, this is kind of important to note. Joseph, the son, and the new maid were both found dead inside of the home, and they were both found dead in their crib. Like, Joseph was found dead in his crib, and the maid was found dead in her bed. So the only two that were not stacked on top of each other were Joseph and the new maid.
Okay, so if it's that guy, maybe he took it a little easier if that was his son.
Right. Maybe that's kind of like the thinking behind it.
Yeah.
Regardless of any of the above rumor, it is known that Schlittenbauer had disturbed the bodies at the scene, thus potentially compromising the investigation.
Come on, dude.
Well, if it is his son, but he didn't do it, grabbing his son up, going for Victoria, those things would actually make a lot of sense, going for the ones that you actually care about, especially if you didn't do it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if I walked in and this guy is the father and saw your son there, you would definitely, pick him up and try to caress him or whatever.
Especially in 1922, when you're not like, oh, the less I do, the better ultimately, the outcome could be.
Right.
You're not really thinking
with the DNA and all. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. At first I was like, man, but now that you mentioned that, it does kind of make sense then in that scenario.
On the night after the crime, 3 days before the bodies were discovered, the artisan Michael Plokel? Again, I can look it up, but I'm just going to pass.
It's funnier that way.
Happened to pass by Hinterkaifeck, the farm. Plokel, observed that the oven had been heated by someone. That person had approached him with a lantern and blinded him, whereupon he hastily continued on his way. So he sees that, the stove's on, smoke's coming from the chimney.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, like they're home. I haven't seen them all weekend. What's going on? So he approaches and somebody comes out with a lantern, shining it right in his eyes and like not responding to him at all. And just like, okay, like this is kind of weird. I think I should just like, get out of here. So that's his account. On April 1st at 3 a.m., the farmer and butcher, Simon Ryblander, on the way home near Brunnen, saw two unknown figures at the edge of the forest. When the strangers saw him, they turned around so that their faces could not be seen. Later, when he heard the murders in Hinterkaifeck, he thought it possible that maybe those strangers were involved. Now, April 1st at 3 a.m., and the murders took place the evening of March 31st. So this would be the very next day, they would have been seen. But that kind of doesn't really make too much sense considering that the farm was, kept up.
Yeah.
So you can't have two guys gone, but also the farm's kind of kept up.
Right. God, man, this is
kind of wild, right?
This is crazy.
In the middle of May 1927, so this is 5 years after the murders, a stranger was said to have stopped a resident of Weidhofen at midnight. That's a town in Germany. He asked them questions about the murder and then shouted that he was the murderer before he ran into the woods. And the stranger was never identified. So,
I'm the murderer. Ah!
I'm the murderer. Ah! Yeah, it just like takes off. Yeah. So weird, but it's an account, that was documented.
What the fuck?
So there were many more suspects to name. The former maid had made several accusations of former helpers of the farm. However, none of her leads led anywhere. So she was saying like, oh, maybe it was this guy. Maybe it was that guy. Maybe it was this guy. So, the maid might have been pointing them in like different directions. Maybe she actually, killed someone.
Had something to do with it. Pointing him in all different.
Exactly.
Making the trail go cold.
Throwing them off different directions. Exactly.
Yeah.
Less than a year after the murders, the house was demolished, revealing additional evidence. They finally found the mattock hidden in the attic.
That's what this story should be called, Mattock in the Attic.
Dude, mattock in the attic? That's what it's called, dude. You better name it that. That's so good. Now, this is Staircase Conspiracy, so we gotta leave this story on some sort of bigger conspiracy. Have you ever heard of the Villisca Axe murders?
No.
Well, in 1912, just 10 years previously in the States, in Iowa, a family of 8 were all found dead in their home, having been killed by an axe owned by the family. And one name is mentioned in both cases. So in both the Villisca Axe murders case, there was a suspect. And in the Hinterkaifeck farm killings, there was a suspect named. And this guy is Paul Mueller. And we'll be talking about him next in the next Staircase Conspiracy.
Oh, okay.
And we'll be jumping into the Villisca Axe murders and, kind of going from there. But
nice.
So this guy is actually mentioned. So one case in Iowa and one case in Germany. One dude mentioned both cases, Paul Mueller.
Wow, talk about huge gaps of where that happened, man. Jeez. Freaking Iowa to Germany. Crap.
So let's get into who do you think that the killer was out of these suspects?
So, I mean, originally we mentioned the paranormal that the maid was saying. Do you think it could have been paranormal?
I mean, who am I to roll that out? I guess it could have been, but there was a lot of things like, why are you like cooking dinner? If you're paranormal.
Right. So
why are you eating dinner?
Yeah, I don't think it was paranormal, but that was interesting. I think the maid may have had something to do with it, man. Like, I don't think she killed him. That would be a lot for one female to do. But I mean, maybe she had something to do with it, because her saying the paranormal stuff and then also, giving all these weak clues and tips to the police afterwards, that seems kind of suspicious. But man, I don't know, man. I think she maybe had something to do with it.
Well, I think that you've just changed my... All right, so my my original theory was this, that the maid, she was actually hearing the killers in the attic. And the killer actually had moved into the attic, and she was like noticing all these things, and she got fired because of her kind of like causing some issues, like, oh my gosh, this place is haunted, or whatever. And actually, I think she quit.
That's interesting too, because maybe that you might have changed my mind, because that seems plausible. Like, you hear stuff in the attic, so it's like.
But here's my new theory.
It's haunted.
Here's my new theory. This is what I think might have been based off of what you just said. They obviously knew the person, because they all were led one by one down there. So maybe the maid was like, hey, look, something's wrong in the shed. Like,
one of the animals is sick.
Something's wrong. And they would have believed her and came out like one by one. And maybe that's why the new maid was asleep and she left her in there, because she's not going to come listen and follow her out. And neither can young Joseph. He can't walk. So you're right. Leading them out and then killed by someone else.
Yeah. See, man, I think that might be.
And then throwing off the investigation by, check this guy out, check that guy out. Why does she have so many names to give out?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think she... Now, aside from this Paul Mueller fella that we don't know anything about, we just know that his name was mentioned in both cases, and kind of look forward to diving a little bit further into the Villisca axe murders. But
yeah.
Well, until then, that wraps the conspiracy for this week.
Yeah, man, that was very interesting. I mean, it's just sad. It just makes me sad that people out there that do this, man. Like just killing families, like, God.
And then they eat their food.
Yeah, eat their food, stack them up like they're dirt. I mean,
taking care of the animals for what? You're gonna leave.
That's what's very strange too. I mean,
well, we hope that you guys enjoyed that conspiracy. Until next time, I'm Nathan.
I'm Nicholas. Also, guys, I wanted to say we are almost at 400 subscribers. So we appreciate the uptick in subscribers over the past few months. And let us know if you guys want to hear something specific, or, just if you're not subscribed, hit subscribe, hit the like, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.
Later.